What if I told you that beaches better than the Maldives and a canyon rivaling the Grand Canyon exist in the same country? Welcome to Albania, one of Europe's most overlooked gems. Once you see what it's hiding, you'll wonder why it's not already on your list. From waterfall-fed valleys and medieval castles to beaches that outshine the tourist traps, this country delivers everything, without the crowds. In this video, I'll reveal some fun facts about Albania, and then we'll explore some of its most amazing places. And make sure to watch until the end, because we'll visit a village with two sides. One you'll find on the map, and one you'll only discover if you know where to look. Fun facts about Albania. Did you know Albania is filled with bunkers? About 173,000 of them? Here's another surprise. Albania is one of the few European countries without a single McDonald's, proving that fast food hasn't conquered every corner of Europe yet. And if you think gestures are universal, think again. Albanians nod to say no and shake their heads side to side to mean yes, flipping expectations upside down. The language here, called Shqipe, is unlike any other. It's ancient, unique, and stands alone on its own branch of the Indo-European family tree. Albania is also notably young, with a large part of the population under 30, bringing fresh energy to this ancient land. Outdoors enthusiasts find their paradise here too, with about 300 sunny days a year, rivaling some of the Mediterranean's favorite holiday spots. Nature lovers can also discover rare wildlife, like the elusive Balkan lynx, of which fewer than 40 remain. Despite its complicated history, Albania today boasts one of Europe's lowest violent crime rates, making it not only fascinating but wonderfully welcoming and safe for travelers. The best places in Albania. Ksamil Islands. What if I told you one of the most beautiful beach spots in Europe was completely hidden from the world for decades? Stick around, because the reason why is pretty surprising. Down in southern Albania, just outside the town of Sarandë, Ksamil is a tiny coastal village with a big reputation. And the reason? Just a few hundred meters offshore are the 4 tiny, uninhabited Ksamil Islands, the iconic islets that give this beach town its name. They float in some of the clearest, shallowest water you'll ever see, with visibility reaching over 20 meters on a good day. The sand is soft and white, the sea is calm, and on the horizon, you can even spot the Greek island of Corfu. You can rent a paddle boat or kayak and head out to the islands, or if you're feeling bold, you could swim 200 meters across. Would you try it? The islands themselves are strictly protected. No buildings allowed, which helps preserve that untouched wild beauty. Back in the village, things stay simple and relaxed. Ksamil only has about 3,000 residents, but in summer, it bursts with visitors chasing that secret beach vibe. And here's the best part. Even with views like this, it's still way cheaper than most Mediterranean hotspots. No mega resorts, no tourist traps, just family-run guest houses, seafood spots, and chill beach bars. So why didn't you hear about Ksamil sooner? Here's the twist. During Albania's communist era, this entire coastline was off-limits to foreigners. Tourists weren't allowed here. Locals couldn't leave. Now, it's being called the Maldives of Europe. And once you see it, you'll understand exactly why. Osumi Canyons. What if one of Europe's most stunning canyons wasn't just beautiful, but also considered sacred? What's hidden here might actually surprise you. Located near the town of Voskopoja in southern central Albania, this massive gorge, often called the Grand Canyon of Albania, is anything but dry and dusty. This one's lush, green, and alive. The canyon stretches for 26 kilometers, carved over millions of years by the Osumi River. Its walls rise up to 80 meters high, with cliffs that close in so tight, some sections can only be reached by floating through them. Can you imagine drifting through a canyon so narrow and untouched, it feels like nature's own secret hallway? In spring, when the mountain snow starts to melt, the water rises, and it turns into a world-class rafting spot. By summer, it calms down, and you can actually walk or swim through the narrow passages, surrounded by walls covered in green moss and hanging plants. Would you go in? Some parts are so narrow, it feels like nature cut them with a blade. The sunlight filters in from above, creating surreal reflections on the water below. And tucked deeper inside, you'll find the cathedral, a naturally carved cave-like chamber that looks straight out of a fantasy film. And here's where it gets wild. Locals believe that certain parts of the canyon hold sacred water, used in old rituals and traditions. It's said that 12th century dervishes even used the canyon's hidden corners for meditation. Oh, and if you're feeling brave, some tours even let you jump off cliffs into natural pools, with guides, of course. Despite how epic it looks, the area is still under the radar. No big crowds, no built-up tourism, just nature at its most powerful, and maybe even a little bit magical. Berat. What if there was a town where the houses looked like they were staring back at you? It might sound strange, but once you see Berat, it'll make perfect sense. Located in central Albania, right along the Osumi River, Berat is one of the oldest continuously inhabited cities in the country. Its streets are lined with layers of history: Ottoman roofs, Byzantine churches, Albanian stonework, all woven together into one impossibly photogenic hillside. How often do you walk through a city that feels more like a living museum than a tourist stop? The town is made up of 3 historic neighborhoods: Mangalam, Gjirokastër, and Kallase. Mangalam and Gjirokastër sit on opposite sides of the river, linked by an 18th century stone bridge that's still in use today. Climb higher and you'll reach Kallase, the castle quarter, where people still live inside the walls of a fortress dating back to the 4th century BC. The light here at golden hour? It's unreal. The whole town glows. And the people? Warm, proud, and tied to tradition in a way that gives this place a quiet power. But there's something else about Berat, something that lingers as you walk the streets. You start to feel like you're being watched. It's not in your head, because some of the hillside homes, especially in Mangalam, have so many windows stacked across their facades that it really does feel like the buildings are watching you. That's why they call it the City of 1,000 Windows. And once you've stood in its shadow, you'll never forget that view. Theth National Park. What if the most peaceful village in Albania was hiding a story that once terrified its own people? Today, Theth draws hikers and nature lovers, but not long ago, it was known for something much darker. High in the Albanian Alps, Theth National Park stretches across 2,600 hectares of untouched alpine terrain. The main village, Theth, sits at around 850 meters above sea level, cradled by peaks that rise over 2,500 meters into the sky. It's the kind of place where dense forests, icy rivers, and hidden waterfalls feel like something out of a fairy tale. In autumn, the valley turns gold. In spring, the melting snow powers Grunus Waterfall, a 30-meter drop into a narrow gorge, surrounded by steep cliffs and moss-covered rock. It's one of Albania's most iconic waterfalls, with a narrow canyon that echoes the crash of water like a natural amphitheater. Getting close to it feels like walking into a secret carved by nature. And then there's the Blue Eye of Theth, a glowing turquoise spring hidden deep in the forest. Would you touch it? Even in summer, the water is ice cold. The Shala River winds through the valley like a silver ribbon, and it's perfect for slow walks, dips, or just listening to nothing but water and wind. But this isn't just a park. Theth is a village that holds on to its past, with stone houses, wooden fences, and traditions that go back generations. The locals, mostly Catholic, are known for hospitality, pride, and homemade food. Think cheese, honey, lamb stew, and rakija with every meal. You'll see the famous tiny mountain church and hear stories told around tables and fireplaces. But eventually, you'll reach the one place no one ever forgets. At the edge of the village stands Kula Inagujimit, the lock-in tower, a stone structure once used to shelter men involved in blood feuds. Families lived with their windows shuttered, and revenge could wait years. To some, it was safety. To others, a prison with no sentence. Theth may look peaceful now, but its past still echoes in the stones. Gjirokastër. What if one of Albania's most beautiful cities was also home to two of its most powerful and controversial figures? The kind of place where the walls don't just hold up houses, they hold secrets. This is Gjirokastër, tucked into the hills of southern Albania, not far from the Greek border. Known as the Stone City, it's a place where everything, from the rooftops to the roads, feels like it's been carved to last forever. The entire town is built into a steep hillside, giving it a dramatic, layered look. Some homes are literally built into the rock, and the stone staircases seem to rise and fall with the terrain, like the town is breathing. It's one of the best preserved Ottoman towns in the Balkans, famous for its multi-story stone houses, wooden balconies, and slate-gray rooftops. Most streets are so narrow and steep, cars can't even pass. You explore Gjirokastër on foot, one careful step at a time. But how often do you walk through a place that feels frozen in time, yet alive with tension? Overlooking it all is Gjirokastër Castle, one of the largest castles in the Balkans, perched high above the town with sweeping views. Parts of it date back to the 12th century, but the Ottomans expanded it into a massive fortress. Inside, you'll find a military museum, an old prison, and even a captured U.S. Air Force plane from the Cold War. And if you ask around, locals will tell you there are secret tunnels still hidden beneath it. But Gjirokastër's history isn't just stone and architecture. This city is where Albania's most famous writer, Ismail Kadare, was born. It's also the hometown of Enver Hoxha, the former communist dictator. Two men, one shaped Albania's soul, the other ruled its silence. On a misty day, when the clouds wrap around the rooftops, Gjirokastër doesn't just feel old. It feels like it remembers. Pogradec. What if one of Albania's most peaceful towns sat on a lake it had to share with another country? Most people don't even realize who's on the other side, but that changes everything. This is Pogradec, a calm lakeside town in southeastern Albania, sitting on the western shore of Lake Ohrid. It has a laid-back, small city vibe that makes it feel more like a retreat than a destination. The lake itself is a giant, one of the oldest inhabited lakeside regions in Europe, with crystal clear water that often mirrors the surrounding mountains like glass. Locals swim, boat, and lounge along the shore, living life at a slower rhythm. Would you guess this peaceful water hides ancient species found nowhere else on Earth? The famous Ohrid trout has lived here for thousands of years, and the lake has a kind of silence that feels sacred. Pogradec also has a quiet cultural weight. It's the birthplace of Llogara Pass, one of Albania's most beloved poets, whose work was inspired by this lake, this light, and this stillness. The mild, fresh climate makes it a perfect summer escape, especially compared to the hotter coastal towns. And even now, it's still off the radar for most international tourists. So who's on the other side of the lake? It's North Macedonia, where the lake gets more attention, more tourism, and more buzz. But that's what makes Pogradec special. It doesn't compete. It doesn't try to impress. It just exists. Calm, unfiltered, and unforgettable. Shkodër. What if one of Albania's oldest cities was built on a legend so tragic, it still echoes through its walls today? In Shkodër, myth and history are woven into the stone, and the story starts with one woman, Rosafa. Shkodër is located in northern Albania, near the shores of Lake Shkodër, the largest lake in southern Europe. It's one of the oldest cities in the Balkans, with over 2,400 years of history. But today, it feels Mediterranean, open, and full of life. It's also known as the bicycle capital of Albania. In some neighborhoods, bikes outnumber cars, and the rhythm of the city rolls along two wheels at a time. Just outside town, perched on a hill above three converging rivers, the Drin, the Buna, and the Kir, sits Rosafa Castle. The roots of the fortress stretch back to Illyrian times, around the 4th century BC, but the most famous part isn't built from stone, it's built from legend. Would you believe that a woman was sealed into its walls, willingly? According to the myth, the castle walls kept collapsing until a human sacrifice was made. Rosafa, the wife of one of the builders, agreed to be buried inside, as long as a hole was left so she could continue to nurse her baby. Her story has been passed down for generations, as a symbol of sacrifice, strength, and quiet resilience. And when you stand on the ramparts, looking out over the lake, the mountains, and the city below, you feel that weight. Locals say, Shkodërnet are different. And it's true. There's pride here. Independence. A sense of identity that runs deeper than the foundations of the castle. Shkodër also makes a great gateway to the Albanian Alps, but don't rush through it. Because here, every legend is rooted in truth, and even the calmest corners have a story to tell. Dhërmi. What if I told you that one of Albania's most beautiful beaches wasn't even marked on the road? In Dhërmi, some of the coastline disappears, until you go looking for it. Located along the Albanian Riviera, between Vlore and Sarandë, Dhërmi is a place of contrasts, where mountain paths, old stone houses, and sea air all mix together in ways you don't expect. But how often do you find a beach town where the village is actually looking down on the sea? That's exactly what happens here. The old village sits on the slopes of the Sarandëian mountains, with red-tiled roofs, narrow alleys, and the scent of wild herbs in the air. It's the kind of place where nothing moves fast, and that's exactly the point. Head downhill and everything shifts. Dhërmi Beach is one of the most loved in Albania. White pebbles, blue-green water, and beach bars tucked between rock formations. Nearby, there's Dry Maids Beach with its split shoreline, and then something a little harder to find. Gjirokastër Beach, a hidden cove at the end of a canyon, only reachable by foot or boat. No road signs, no big crowds, just a path, a cliff, and the sea waiting at the end. Would you hike 30 minutes just to find the kind of beach most people miss entirely? Despite all this, Dhërmi still feels underrated internationally. That might be why the sunsets hit harder here, the Ionian Sea glowing orange, and barely a sound but the tide and a few glasses clinking nearby. In Dhërmi, you don't just find the coast, you earn it. Voskopoja. What if a village that feels like the middle of nowhere was once the center of everything? Voskopoja looks like a retreat, but it has a past you'd never expect. Located in southeastern Albania, near the city of Krujë, Voskopoja is tucked into the Morava Mountains, sitting at about 1,100 meters above sea level. Surrounded by forests and alpine meadows, it's the kind of place people come to for tranquility, nature walks, and warm food by a fireplace. At first glance, it's a quiet village with a modest population, traditional homes, and cobbled paths. But how often do you walk into a place that feels completely forgotten, only to find it once shaped history? In the 18th century, Voskopoja was one of the most advanced towns in the Balkans, a major hub for Orthodox Christianity, education, and the arts. It had schools, printing presses, and 24 churches. For a time, this mountain town was a cultural capital, drawing thinkers, artists, and scholars from across the region. How does a place like that end up forgotten? Over time, invasions and wars swept through, destroying many of its churches and driving people away. But a few remain, stone-built, quiet, still filled with frescoes and wooden iconostasis, tucked into the hills like time capsules. Today, Voskopoja feels off the beaten path. It's a popular weekend escape for locals from Krujë, but still undiscovered by most international travelers. Guest houses serve homemade food, the air smells like pine, and the silence is the kind you lean into. It may look like the middle of nowhere now, but Voskopoja once shaped the spirit of an entire region. And the pieces of that story are still right here, waiting to be noticed. Valbona Valley. What if one of Albania's most breathtaking landscapes was hidden in a place with a name no traveler ever forgets? They call it the Accursed Mountains, but the reason why isn't what you'd expect. In northern Albania, near the borders of Kosovo and Montenegro, lies Valbona Valley National Park, nestled in the heart of the Albanian Alps. The park covers around 8,000 hectares, or 80 square kilometers, of protected alpine wilderness, where everything feels raw, untouched, and enormous. This is a place surrounded by towering peaks, many reaching over 2,000 meters, and split by a turquoise river that cuts through the valley like a moving ribbon of glacier melt. It's known for its crystal-clear waters, dense forests, and wide open sky that shifts from brilliant blue to stormy gray in minutes. Would you expect to find brown bears, wolves, lynx, and eagles in a place barely marked on the map? Here, it's possible. Valbona is the starting point for the legendary Valbona to Theth trail, a multi-hour mountain crossing that's considered one of the most scenic hikes in the Balkans. The routes vary from gentle riverside strolls to serious alpine climbs, and in many areas there's no cell service, no signs, just wilderness. The villages here have a rhythm all their own. You'll find stone houses, local guest houses, and families living with the same strength as the landscape around them. Trout from the river, homemade cheese, and dairy straight from the farm. It's all part of the experience. And behind every meal, every smile, is a mix of Catholic and Muslim traditions that still shape daily life. So why accursed? The name comes from stories passed down for centuries, legends of ancient isolation, danger, and survival. But today, the only thing that feels cursed is how hard it is to pull yourself away. Valbona may sit in the accursed mountains, but what you'll find here is nothing short of a blessing. Krujë. At first glance, Krujë looks like just another quiet mountain town. But there's a reason it's etched into the memory of every Albanian, and it's not what you'd expect. Located in central Albania, about 30 kilometers north of Tirana, Krujë is built into a steep mountainside with wide views stretching across the plains all the way to the Adriatic Sea. The streets are lined with stone walls and wooden balconies, and the town winds its way up towards something much bigger than it looks. Down below, you'll find one of the oldest and most authentic bazaars in the country. Cobblestone alleys, hand-woven rugs, copperwork, and folk art that still carries the spirit of the Ottoman past. It's the kind of place where you don't just shop, you step into a living timeline. But what kind of place holds on to its past so tightly that every student in the country still learns its story? Above it all stands Krujë Castle, perched on a rocky cliff, originally built in the 5th or 6th century, and later expanded into a fortress of resistance. From its towers, you can see mountains, forests, and the shimmer of coastline in the distance. And here's the truth. Krujë is the birthplace of Albania's national hero, Skanderbeg. It was from this very fortress that he led his rebellion against the Ottoman Empire, holding the line for 25 years and becoming a symbol of unity and strength for generations to come. This is why Krujë is known as the heart of Albanian resistance. This is why it matters. Because in a town this small, a nation began to fight for itself. Sarandë. It looks like just another sunny beach town, but what if Sarandë's modern vibe was built on top of something ancient? There's more beneath this city than umbrellas and cocktails. Located in southern Albania, along the edge of the Ionian Sea, Sarandë is one of the most visited spots on the Albanian Riviera. With a Mediterranean climate, views of the Greek island of Corfu, and a summer season that doesn't slow down, it's no wonder people flock here. Its beachfront promenade is lined with cafes, bars, and restaurants, and the atmosphere mixes urban energy with coastal calm. Nearby beaches like Mirror Beach, Paskirat, and Monastery Beach offer spots to swim, unwind, and watch the sun melt into the sea. But how many beach towns have Roman names and ancient ruins tucked just behind the sunbeds? Sarandë was once called Onchesmus, a port city under Greek and Roman rule. Today, you can still find traces of that past, like the remains of a Jewish synagogue complex, and just outside the city, the incredible Butrint ruins, a UNESCO World Heritage Site with layers of history built one on top of the other. The city has seen Greek, Roman, Byzantine, and Ottoman influence, and it still holds on to a blend of Albanian and Greek cultural roots in its architecture, its food, and the rhythm of daily life. It may be livelier and more social than some of Albania's quieter beach towns, but Sarandë is more than sun and sea. It's a place where the ancient and the modern aren't separated. They're stacked. And somehow it all works. Qeparo. There's a village on the Albanian Riviera that doesn't just have two sides. It has one you see, and one you almost miss. What's hidden here says more than the part that's on the map. This is Qeparo, located between Himare and Sarandë, and known as one of the quietest and most authentic spots on the Riviera. At first glance, it's a peaceful coastal village right along the water, clear, shallow sea, soft pebbles, and barely a crowd in sight. But look closer. Qeparo is actually split in two, with a second village rising above the first. Climb the hillside and you'll find the old settlement, built on the slope of Mount Gjirokastër. It's a place of stone houses, narrow alleys, and views over olive groves and the Ionian Sea. Quiet, slow, almost forgotten. It feels like time never made it all the way up here. How many beach towns invite you to explore upward, to chase something that doesn't even announce itself? The path between the upper and lower halves is steep but beautiful, and the contrast is part of the magic. Down by the water, life is easy and open. Up above, it's all memory and silence. And no matter which side you're on, the sunsets wrap it all in gold. Even among Albanians, Qeparo still feels like a secret. But for those who take the time to look past the shoreline, it becomes something deeper than just a stop on the map. Tirana. How does a city go from total control to total color? In Tirana, the answer is hidden in places you'd never think to look. Tirana is the capital and largest city of Albania, located in the center of the country. It became the capital in 1920, and for decades it was shaped by strict control, gray, uniform, and built for function over beauty. Today, it's anything but that. The city moves fast. The streets are full of colorful buildings, open-air cafes, public art, and nightlife that goes until sunrise. It blends traditional markets with rooftop bars and history with street murals. The vibe is young, loud, and impossible to pin down. At the heart of it all is Skanderbeg Square, named after Albania's national hero. It's surrounded by Tirana's most iconic buildings, the Ethem Bey Mosque, the Clock Tower, the National History Museum, and the Opera House, each from a different era, all standing side by side. But how do you build a future on top of a past you can't erase? All over Tirana, the past is still here. Concrete buildings, socialist mosaics, and hundreds of Cold War bunkers. But instead of tearing them down, Tirana did something more unexpected. It painted over them, literally. Gray facades became murals, concrete blocks burst with color, and even Cold War bunkers were transformed into places like bunk art, underground museums where history and creativity share the same space. And the Pyramid of Tirana, once a monument to dictator Enver Hoxha, is now a youth center, open to anyone who wants to climb it. Tirana didn't bury its past, it painted over it. And what's emerging now is something bold, chaotic, and completely its own. Permet. Why do people remember a town where almost nothing happens? Permet doesn't try to impress you, but something about it stays with you. Set in southeastern Albania, in the lush Vjosa River Valley, Permet is often called the City of Roses. It's surrounded by mountains, rivers, and canyons, but the mood here is slower, softer, more about feeling than seeing. The town is known for its natural beauty, quiet streets, and a kind of local hospitality that feels untouched by time. You won't find crowds or chaos, just homemade food, strong raki, and people who still greet you like a guest, not a customer. But what if the most meaningful places aren't the ones with the most to do, but the ones that let you do nothing at all? Just outside town are the Benja Thermal Baths, natural hot springs nestled near Llogara Canyon, crossed by an old Ottoman stone bridge. The water is warm, slightly mineral-rich, and believed to have healing properties. Nearby flows the Vjosa River, one of Europe's last wild rivers. You can raft it, hike beside it, or simply sit near it, letting the sound of the current pull you into the moment. So how can a place this small leave a mark that lasts? Maybe it's the taste of gliko, the handmade fruit preserve the town is known for. Maybe it's the fact that people here still grow their food, make their wine, and pass down recipes like heirlooms. Or maybe it's just the quiet, the space to breathe, to sit still, and to feel like that's enough. Permet isn't about what you see, it's about how you feel. And that's why people remember it. Llogara Pass. What if a single road could take you from pine forests to palm trees in under 30 minutes? Llogara Pass looks like one thing at the start, but it ends somewhere you'd never expect. Located in southern Albania, inside Llogara National Park, this mountain pass sits at an altitude of around 1,043 meters. It's part of the scenic SH8 highway, connecting the coastal town of Oricum to the southern Albanian Riviera. At first, the road winds through the Sarandë mountains, sharp switchbacks, mist in the trees, and the scent of pine everywhere. You're surrounded by eagles, deer, wild goats, and alpine silence. But what kind of mountain road ends with the sea on the horizon? As you climb higher, the Ionian coastline starts to appear, a glittering strip far below. On clear days, you can see as far as Palace and Dhërmi, with the road unfolding like a ribbon across the cliffs. And then, just like that, the forest falls away. The air changes, and you're staring at a coastline that looks like it belongs in another country entirely. Llogara Pass isn't just a drive. It's a shift, from mountain to Mediterranean, from cool mist to warm air, from isolation to the wide open coast. No wonder it's a favorite among road trippers and motorcyclists, often called one of the most scenic drives in the Balkans. Llogara Pass doesn't just take you somewhere new. It transforms where you are and how you feel getting there. Thank you for joining me on this unforgettable journey through the stunning landscapes of Albania. If you enjoyed this adventure, don't forget to subscribe to be the first to discover future explorations, and be sure to watch the next video to see where the road takes us next.